My name is Lexi Weaver, and I did my Humanities 302 artifact presentation on the rise and the fall of the Berlin Wall. I focused in on the socio-economic influences and the political influences on why there was the construction and deconstruction of the wall in the city of Berlin, found in the country of Germany. Before we get to that, I'd like to back up to World War II of the effects that had on the construction and deconstruction of the wall. At the end of World War II, the Allied forces won and took over the country of Germany, putting the Nazi regime and Hitler out of power. Now that Hitler was dead and there was no one controlling the country, the real question was, what do we do with Germany now? And the solution that they came up with was to divide the country into two distinct nations, East Germany and West Germany. East Germany was controlled by the Soviet Union and became very much a communist power in the world, since the Soviet Union was a communist country. The other side, West Germany, was controlled by the United States and by the United Kingdom and by France. And that had they turned that into a capitalist nation due to just the influences of those three countries. It seemed like a good solution to divide the country, divide the profits and the resources amongst the winners. And it seemed like a good solution at the time, but soon we realized that a lot of disputes came from that decision. Having the same country basically being divided into two nations and having them so different socioeconomically and politically caused some really difficult problems between those two countries. Then came the Cold War, which kind of pushed them to their breaking point. The Cold War started in 1947, just 2 years after the end of World War II. And although it wasn't titled a world war, the entire world was affected by the Cold War. Though the Cold War was basically about the use of nuclear weapons and the morality that stemmed from that, it was actually the real weapon in the Cold War was fear. Fear had dominated the entire world of being scared whether or not nuclear weapons would come and destroy their lands, or whether they would come and destroy their nation and wipe out the world due to the power that nuclear weapons have. That fear stemmed from adults to children. In schools, these children were taught exactly what to do if a world war were to break out again and nuclear weapons were to be launched on them. The world was dominated by this fear and was completely controlled by it. And so was Berlin, which is the middle city in Germany that kind of divided the East Germany and the West Germany. The city of Berlin was already having those sort of disputes because of the differences between those two countries, but yet somehow their unity. But now that the Cold War was breaking out and this morality question of whether or not it was moral to use nuclear weapons for the advancement of a nation was coming up, it was a big question on whether or not it was okay to use those. And so the countries were living in fear. Because of this fear, a lot of people from East Germany were running to West Germany, were running to this capitalist country, and they were running back and forth through this city of Berlin, having free transportation between the two nations that used to be one country. It was common for family members to be divided onto either side of these two nations and to live in totally different circumstances because of who was in control of that portion of the land. So a solution that East Germany came up with, because all of their people were leaving to West Germany, the solution that they came up with was to build a wall. That is something that even right now, as we're having these disputes with Mexico with illegal immigration, that's something that we're thinking is going to be a good solution, is just to build a wall. And we can look to the Berlin Wall and see the successes and failures of it, to see kind of a foreshadow of if we were to build this wall, what exactly would happen, or could happen. So the Berlin Wall was constructed and divided the two nations. The Cold War continued on, and there was no sort of transport or communication between East and West Germany. They became two completely distinct nations. And that lasted uncontested for 26 years of that Berlin Wall being up until the late 80s, when the Cold War ended, or began to end, and the culture changed. The culture changed throughout the world. Instead of being dominated by this fear that they had always been controlled by, they were now becoming very individualistic. The culture changed to this individualistic, bold pursuit of individual gain instead of gain as a country. Due to that, there was tons of different beliefs of what to do with the Berlin Wall. There were many different protests of how to act after this, and so the people took it upon themselves to grab hammers and pickaxe and to dive at this wall and to take it down themselves. So in 1991, the people took down the Berlin Wall as a sign of unity, as a sign of communication, and as a sign of individualism, that they would no longer live in fear, but that they would live again as one community, as one country of Germany. And it was a real sign of the influences that were happening at the time. Since the Berlin Wall went up as a sign of fear, the Berlin Wall went down as a sign of bravery. And that's it. That's all I got.